You know, you may think you know what I thought of the film based on the title, but be careful. Constable, do not jump to conclusions. See how they run. Let's talk about it. See How They Run is a mystery whodunit, a whodunit film set in 1950s London. And I have been very excited for this film for a while. I saw the trailer a couple months back, and this just seems like a film that I would very much enjoy. It looked funny, it looked lighthearted, it looked like a very capable mystery that would be an entertaining, good time. And I had, maybe it was my expectations, that could always be the case, but I have to say that I was underwhelmed by the final product. This is, of course, a whodunit, and so if you want to see the film, if you have any interest in seeing the film, I would probably recommend that you watch it, as I do for most of my videos, but I would recommend that you watch the movie before my review, so as to avoid getting any spoilers or anything like that. The first thing I would mention about See How They Run is the ensemble, which is by all means pretty impressive. I wasn't blown away by anyone's performance. I would say Saoirse Ronan is probably the standout as maybe the lead supporting actress. Sam Rockwell is fine, you know, he's a bit of a joke for a lot of the film. I do like, I forgot his name, but he's in The King's Man as well. The actor who plays the lead actor, I thought he was very enjoyable. And I mean, everybody else they're fine. They're clearly having a lot of fun with the film, which I appreciated. But a nice ensemble. Oh, Adrian Brody is in it for, brief amounts of time, and he's pretty good. Yeah, nice ensemble. As for the technical aspects here, everything is, it suffices. The cinematography suffices. The production design is pretty good. It does a good job of crafting 1950s London, obviously. The score here is nice. Again, it just completely fits the vibe of a whodunit mystery from the 50s. An Agatha Christie-esque whodunit, of course, because she plays a large role in the plot of the film. You will see and know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I will say that a whodunit is largely carried by its central mystery, obviously. And I did not find the central mystery here to be particularly the strongest. And I think the main reason for that I could deduce was probably because in most whodunits you have a detective that follows lead after lead after lead, and each lead produces a new lead until suddenly all the evidence, you have some red herrings along the way, but until all the evidence racks up and eventually you have the motive, the killer, yada. And that is not really the case here, because it feels like they interview each member of each suspect, and they get pieces of information out of them, and it sort of fills in the story here, but it just doesn't feel like a natural procession of evidence gathering. Okay, so in a film like it's just not particularly, a film like Knives Out, a recent whodunit, I think works very well because he'll interview a suspect, he'll get some information that will cause him to interview another suspect, and then it's an endless cycle until some roads are dead ends, until he knows he's on the right track because he's being sabotaged, stuff like that. And this film has none of that. It feels like, again, interview suspect, gather information, interview suspect, gather information, and it's just a lot less interesting that way because there's nothing keeping you going, right? It just feels like little bits of information. Again, it won't make a ton of sense unless you've seen the film, and even then it might not make sense because I don't know if I'm the only one with this opinion, but it just doesn't feel like a classic whodunit in that sense. It doesn't feel like the detectives are actively gathering leads. They're just ruling out people, they don't even rule out anybody after asking them. So it's just, suspect, gathering little bits of information, and they don't end up leading to anything. They just fill in pieces of the story. Even at the end, again, spoilers, it feels like they just stumble upon, because at that point they'd been written into a corner. the inspector and the constable, and so they sort of just stumble upon the answer, and it's not very satisfying. Along those lines, whodunits, I have a high bar for whodunits, I'd say, because when you invest all this time and energy into trying to solve it, I think it's reasonable to expect a satisfying answer. And so Murder on the Orient Express is another story. A spoiler for that film/book if you haven't seen or read it. But it is not a favorite of mine because I find the answer to the film to be deeply unsatisfying. I'm not satisfied by the answer that everyone was involved. I don't find that very... I feel like I felt like I'd wasted my time after all that. And here, I mean, this is just not a very not a very satisfying ending. The motive doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It feels like it's tacked on to this character. I actually had predicted the murderer, and I could tell you why if you're interested. I will. Spoilers. Okay, spoilers. If you want to see the film, don't listen to this. And then I just like, because filmmakers like to do this, they think they're clever. At the beginning when he's in this trench coat and whatever, he blocks something with his left arm. And then later you see, again, spoilers, him holding the tray with his left hand. And so I wasn't obviously conclusive by any means, but I did assume that he was the killer because he was the only left-handed member of the cast. But I would never have guessed the motive, right? I would never have guessed the motive because it was ridiculous, and you couldn't possibly have guessed it. And I think it is a very extreme leap in logic to suggest that he would do this, that he would kill not one but two people, simply to avoid, for the reasons that he did. I didn't personally buy it. I wasn't very satisfied by it, which is unfortunate. I also don't think the comedy worked very effectively here. I didn't find much of the jokes to be funny. Obviously there were some standouts here, and I think the actors are really the only reason that these bits are funny, because I don't know if I would laugh at any of them just reading them in a script. But I mean, it was just a little underwhelming, because from the trailer I'd expected it to be a little funnier, a little more clever, and I got neither of those things. And then I will also just say that it just takes a very interesting and contemporary, I will say, approach to this style, which is not an inherently bad thing. I was sort of expecting it, especially with all the humor. But like, there's a dream sequence. There's the fact that it's very, very character focused on these two lead characters, but in a way that detracts from the mystery as well, in my opinion. I didn't even get to maybe my least favorite thing about the film so far too, so you're in for a treat there. But it was an interesting, and I mean the most contemporary thing about it is that it's sort of being self-referential. Like, it knows it's a whodunit, and so it thinks it's very clever by foreshadowing the ending of the film. You'll see what I'm talking about if you see the film. But the person who is killed first, the director who is trying to adapt the play, pitches an ending for the film. And then naturally, I mean, once you see that, you know, like, okay, that's going to be the ending of this film. And I mean, it's all right. I guess it's executed okay. But you know it's coming. It's like maybe mildly clever at best. I did not think too much of it. I mean, it's all right. And then this is my least favorite thing about the film. I'm not a fan of the trope where two main characters are at odds right before the climax of the film, and they have to come together in the climax to reconcile their differences and save the day, whatever. And here it happens, but it also happens in a very moronic way, okay? It feels very forced and not particularly funny, and it goes away almost immediately. Like, it shows up, it's not like they were alluding to it the whole time. It shows up for maybe 10 minutes at most, and then it's gone. And they act like it never happened sort of after. Granted, the film comes to a close pretty much right after that. But it is, in my opinion, it's just very stupid. It's a very dumb way to put our characters in these situations right before the climax, and I hated it. I didn't think it was a smart writing decision. And so at the end of the day, I guess my main problem with this film is, unfortunately, the writing, which should never be said about any film, but particularly a whodunit. I expected more. I was very excited to see it, and at the end of the day, I think I was pretty harsh this video, but I do think I still was at least mildly entertained. It was not a poorly made film. I was just not the biggest fan of the writing. So while this may change in the future, I may think about it more and like it less. I may think about it more and like it more, though I think that's less likely. I'm going to give it a low B as of right now, because it did not live up to my expectations. It jumped to conclusions, and I don't think it doesn't rank up against any other whodunit that I've seen enough to warrant more praise. And it's really a shame too, because the film started and I was like, man, I'm so excited. I love whodunits. I love these kinds of mysteries where you're placed in the shoes of the protagonist. I'm so excited we're getting the second Knives Out soon, Glass Onion. Very, very much looking forward to that. And I do think we could use more whodunits. I think they're a very interesting genre that can be applied to many different settings, scenarios, time periods, and even many different styles. Like this one took a contemporary humorous approach. There's certainly some more serious ones like the Agatha Christie adaptations, but maybe just put some more thought into them. All right, folks, so that is my review of See How They Run. I saw how they ran. Did you see how they ran? And if you did, let me know what you thought down below. I am seeing The Woman King pretty soon as well, and I hope to enjoy that more. Folks, I've been EDP Reviews. You've just been the absolute best constable. We solved the mystery together. Congratulations. I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.